All right, I'm Nick, out in the garage. Today, take a few minutes, gonna ramble a bit like normal, and I'm gonna tell you why, at this moment, the Hobie Mirage Lynx is the best platform for me. Now, I'm gonna put a little caveat in here. We got a lot of people just go to the comment section, they freak out without watching the video. The Lynx, if you plan on drifting down a river that has rapids and boulders, or you're a guy who just loves to, you know, drift into oyster bars on purpose so your kayak has battle scars and you can post a picture of it on Facebook, the Lynx is not for you. Uh, it's an incredible platform. Like all platforms, it has pros and cons, places it should be used and places it shouldn't be used. Now, the Hobie Mirage Lynx is pretty much everything I spent the last 2 years looking for. Now, obviously, I kayak fish for a living. I have made a living kayak fishing for the majority of my adult life. Uh, there's a pros and cons to everything. Some kayaks are great, they perform well, but they're super heavy. Some are light and super skinny and have no stability, or you need to paddle because they don't have pedal drives. Tons and tons of pros and cons to all kinds of platforms. Today I'm going to tell you why the Lynx is fantastic for me. I'm going to show you a bunch of videos, going to overlay them over me rambling about conditions, surf launches, landing, choppiness, wind, creeks, offshore, catching bottom fish, red snapper, catching king mackerel, throwing top water for redfish, sight fishing, doing all of these things. I'm going to cover it in no particular order. Stay tuned, watch the video, hear me out, and I'll go into details. So let's start with the first question. Now, the first question everybody asks has been all through the comment section, and we have made videos on pretty much all of these topics. I'll put links below so you can watch the full videos, or you can go to our YouTube channel and use the search function for the links. There's a bunch of videos about it. We've been enjoying fishing from it. The first question, is it stable? Now, I did a whole video on this. Obviously, there'll be a link in the description. Yes, it is stable without any kind of question. Stand on it, lean over, do what you got to do. It is extremely stable. I'm not going to go into specs on how wide it is. You can Google that or go to Hobie's website. Fantastic stability, whether you're leaning left or leaning right. Weren't really big fans of how the seat sat because you kind of sit back and you kind of sink into it. So we did create a seat riser kit. We did a video on that, links below, use the search function. Raised the seat a little bit, still did not in any way hinder the stability, being 1.5 inches higher in the back, 1 inch in the front, made it much easier to stand, much easier to lean forward. Super stable. That's that. No reason to really go back over it. Watch the stability video. One of the other things is it's a wet ride. It has to be a wet ride. There's no way you don't get super wet in that thing. And honestly, all the offshore trips, the surf launches, inshore in the wind, I don't really get wet. I mean, like, you're in a kayak, there's always going to be water close to you. I mean, you're sitting like 12 inches from the water, right? But the kayak does a great job at funneling waves down the drive, right? So the wave, if it's offshore, the wave comes over the front of the kayak, the water actually kind of like toilet bowl effects through the drive hole, and we did a whole video on that as well. I don't see myself getting really wet. Now, if waves are coming broadside, yeah, there'll be some spray, but there's spray in every kayak I've ever been in when waves are hitting you broadside. It's just part of the game. If you don't like it, buy a boat or something. I don't know, take up sitting on the beach. Let's see, what's next? Let's talk about launching in the surf. Now, one of the very first videos we did, the first time I sat in the Lynx was in some small surf right here off of Navarre Beach. Went out, put it through its paces. It does really well, but remember, the kayak is so light that the wash would drift it around. Full video on that. Use the search function, use the description. It will slide very, very easy because it floats so easy. It won't get stuck on the sand because any kind of water will move it, but those aren't bad things. They're just something to get used to. Landing in the surf, excuse me, also no big deal. A lot of heavy kayaks, they want to turn and flip. The Lynx is kind of like a boogie board in the surf, so it did really well. It's very easy to get out of. and grab, and it's super lightweight. So dragging it up the beach, dragging it out of the surf and up the hill is very, very easy. You can get it out of the water so you don't get absolutely rocked or flip over or break anything. And we've really enjoyed that. While offshore, we have trolled from it, king mackerel, bonita. It's good. You got to rig it how you want it. I have the rod right in front of the right of the seat, so it's easy to grab. Caught some very nice king mackerel from it. You guys can see one in this clip. It does a good job. Rod's right where you need it. It's easy to pedal, and that's with standard fins. No issues. It does a great job. You can do 2 miles per hour without wasting any energy, and that's what you want if you're just going trolling off the beach for a quick and easy day. As far as bottom fishing goes, took it out. I've caught triggerfish from it. I caught a nice red snapper from it. Multiple red snapper, really. No issues. Plenty. Well, we already know it's stable, right? So plenty stable. Able to put plenty of pressure on a fish and reel it in. And you can see that red snapper. It's a nice fish. Fun to catch. The Lynx did that with 0 issues. Now, wind blown offshore, it still did fantastic. It's the same thing. I'll show you a clip here of some wind blown inshore. It's just small waves from a broadside angle. No big deal. The Lynx handles it great. Not a big deal. Offshore, it still handles that wind chop fine with no big deal. If you've spent any time in a kayak, a crosswind or waves hitting you broadside means you're going to get wet. And we pretty much already covered that earlier. I have never been able to use a kayak that I've ever been able to just put it in my truck and go do anything I want. Now, last week with the Lynx, I took it offshore. I went out, trolled for king mackerel. The next day or 2 days later, because some bad weather, Jamie and I went up fishing up this tiny little creek that was full of grass, eelgrass coming up out of the water. And we were able to navigate this small creek, never pull the fins up, never clear off grass, just pedal right through it for several hours. We caught some chain pickerel. We had a blast. And then the next day, we went through top water for redfish. We pedaled 2+ miles a day easy, had 0 issues, and we were able to do a number of things that I can honestly tell you something like a PA 12 or a 14 would have did terrible in that creek because it was just too tiny. Something like the Predator would have did terrible in that creek because the pedal system would have just picked up grass. So the Lynx is so versatile, it let us do 3 very different things in a 4-day period that most people could never pull their one kayak out and go do. Now, for me, where I live right here on the Gulf Coast, obviously we don't have any oyster bars for the most part. You could find one if you really wanted to. We have a lot of sand everywhere, so dragging a kayak across the beach or using wheels or dragging it down to the river, there's usually sand right up to the riverbank, okay, a lot of places. I don't have to worry about damaging on rocks. I've launched it at boat ramps with 0 issues. You shouldn't be afraid of a boat ramp. I will make a video on how to properly land at a boat ramp because I see people doing it wrong all the time. It's mind-blowing. But the Lynx performs extremely well in every one of these environments, whereas I have a whole lot of kayak experience and I've used a whole lot of kayaks that only perform well in a small area, right? So like I would never take the Predator into those small creeks because I would be pulling the prop the whole time. I would have grass everywhere. I have to use the paddle. It would just be a nightmare. And the Lynx can check off all those boxes for me. And that is my goal as a guy who I don't necessarily need to go fishing with clients every single day anymore because Jamie and Skylar, and I want to just go do stuff with myself or go be a recreational whatever and take my wife out in the Lynx and pedal around. And we were able to do that as well. Super easy. My wife and I could carry them 50 yards to a launch the other day. I wouldn't want to do that in the Predator. We can take the Lynx's places and not bring wheels. Those are huge pluses. One of the major concerns, is durability. For where we live, I don't see an issue with durability. I saw some pictures of guys who, man, they must have just been smashing that thing off of rocks because I spent the first 4 or 5 fishing trips with it offshore. And I would drag it out of the water, and I would just drag it as far up the hill as I could on the sand just to see what happened to it. I've drug it all over the backyard. I've drug it over root systems. I have not damaged the bottom. Yeah, it has like little scuff marks on it, but that's not damage. That's just wear and tear. I don't see that much of a major issue with durability, not to mention Hobie's going to have a warranty for that hull. We'll find out more about that in the future. I don't know all the details yet, but it's going to be there. So as long as you aren't purposely abusing it, you're going to be good to go. Now, I know I probably rambled a bit, but I wanted to give you guys my full thoughts on the Lynx. I think it's a great platform. We have a bunch more videos coming out about it here in the future. I really enjoy fishing from it. I mean, it's a blast. Obviously, you guys should know that. I've been pretty open about it. I enjoy it. It works well. It's lightweight. And it lets me go fishing without breaking my back or anything. And that's important, especially for quick, easy morning trips. Now, if you're still watching, I greatly appreciate it. If you have questions, get down in the comments section or leave me an email at nick@navarrekayakfishing.com. Thanks for watching.